the conversation, but in the beginning, please stay on mute. And if you want to ask a question, why don't we begin? So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're really excited to have a webinar as part of our Future of Work series. We know COVID's really changed everything, and therefore having a group of experts to talk about how it's changed human resources and how automation and AI impact the future of work is really an exciting opportunity. I want to start with just a little housekeeping. If people can stay on mute and off video until you want to ask questions, that would be great. You can ask questions by either raising your hand or putting it in the chat box, and we'll capture that. The way the agenda is going to flow is we're going to have some opening comments and insights from our really high-powered group of speakers, and then we'll ask a few questions, and then from there we will go to individual questions. So introducing our speakers, I'm going to start with John Veeley. I met John in Hyderabad in the lobby of a really nice hotel at GES back, I think, in October of 2017, the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. John is a lawyer by training. He leads Veeley law firm, and he established a sort of technology piece of that called online visas in 2016. And he's really been working on a process of how to improve and automate outcomes in the visa arena. We all know in the US-India corridor that labor mobility is an important piece. And so John's work really supports that. We're also really excited to have Kamal Ahluwalia, who is president of Eightfold AI. And Eightfold AI really brings AI into the human resources environment. And he is the president there, and he's been doing a whole variety of software creating software products that really try to match the need of the company as well as the need of the individual in a very proactive way. He's also a co-author and he's authored several books, but What's Next for You? And it talks about the pathway to transforming the way to manage and hire talent. So thank you, Kamal, for joining. We're also really pleased to have Simon Avinash, who's Vice President of Recruiting India and APAC Technology at Salesforce. And if you look at his LinkedIn site, he really talks about how passionate he is about inclusive hiring. And that's going to certainly be an area that we want to talk to today and you all about how technology and AI can be part of the whole inclusion aspect. So with that, I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to turn over to John Veeley. If you could share your journey a little bit, John, of online visas and how you use AI and automation in the mobility and visa process, that would be great.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. And it's great to be on this panel with Kamal and Simon and Ashish. Thank you guys for having me. I'm definitely the lightweight in this group and really honored to be able to talk about something that has become a passion. Look, I'll put it this way. Nobody likes attorneys. One of my goals is to make attorneys more likable by changing their business model by destroying the way they do it, right? And one of the things that we hate about attorneys is the open checkbook, right? Where you don't know until the end of the month how much you have to pay these guys. And you thought you were talking about some cricket match or some rugby, some football, and next thing you know, they billed you for it, right? So what we've tried to do, and I've been an immigration attorney for about 29 years. At the beginning, immigration was divided between the hourly wage and the hourly fee and the project-based fee. Well, we won at project-based. We launched online visas as a URL in 1998 for our law firm, and we did something that was kind of strange at the time. We actually gave information away. Back then, the internet was in its infancy. Lawyers didn't use it very often. And lawyers are the worst at using anything in new technology. Again, our business model is to bill you for our time. So what I've been thinking, and when I was at the GS summit where I met Jay, I was actually with a guy, a friend of mine, a client of mine, and a developer himself. And we were watching IBM talk about AI and how AI has been around since the 50s, but it just became a commodity that you could purchase, right? And they were talking about Watson and Siri and other applications that are now out there. And I looked to him and I said, we should use AI to make the immigration process better and cheaper. And he goes, sure. So here we are a couple of years later, and we've unveiled it about the first of the year. We've doubled our workforce since the first of the year as of today. I was just having my team trained on how to use it with attorneys from around the world, case managers from around the world, by using a platform that allows us to do it. So what we discovered, there were kind of two problems that we wanted to solve. And one was that immigration for a simple visa, the H-1B, had a denial rate that dropped from 88% to 40%. I'm sorry, approval rate of 88% to 59%. So they're denying 40% of the visas. A lot of the companies here probably have been feeling a lot of that pain. The business model that they picked on the most was really the Indian tech sector that's been coming over, and some of them, the smaller ones, the staffing companies, right? And so we really dug into that because I'd cut my teeth on extraordinary ability visas, and we would write briefs, right? I've litigated. I've had 3 cases in front of the Supreme Court, and I've litigated as I've gone on my career. And I noticed that immigration attorneys were effectively putting in table of contents with just a little bit of information and leaving it to immigration to figure it out. No lawyer would ever do that in any other body of law, but yet that became the norm. So we said, why don't we use a brief, and why don't we answer an RFE up front? Why don't we identify the issues and then give them the answers? So if they come back with an RFE, it'll be smaller or non-existent, right? What we were able to do is create a 95% approval rating when they were at about a 59% approval rating. It wasn't that we were smarter attorneys, but we thought about the process. And especially under the Trump administration, how could our process be better? So that was a solution. Do a lot of work, make a really big brief, but that wasn't cost effective. And that wasn't cost effective for anybody that wanted to do volume. So then we decided we need to make this cheaper, and we need to be cheaper than anybody. We need to be less expensive. We need to create more value, because if we look at our clients in the tech sector, many of them are working on margin. Lawyers are not, we don't do the same things. They're not the same value. If you wanted to hire us to litigate because someone stole your intellectual property, that would have to be an hourly rate. We don't know what the answer is going to be if we take this to a jury trial, but we know what we're going to do if we're going to get you a visa for the same types of people over and over again. But what we need to be able to do is not put in pieces of junk that are going to get denied 40% of the time. We need to put in the best possible thing with the latest case law, with the best authority. And lawyers, if you do this right, can pinpoint their information, spend less time so they can make more money for spending less work, and clients can pay less money because the lawyer spent less time on it, right? So that's when we started using RPA, robotic process automation. And what that did for us is allow us to have our clients upload documents first, not later in the process. By uploading their documents first, we could use the engine to index those documents. Our engine knows the difference between a passport and a resume and a job description and an I-129 and a G-28. It just knows the difference. It says, here's what this is. In that information, we have it parsing parts of those things. So we can take a previous I-129, glean the information from the beneficiary and drop it into our system, glean the information from a different petitioner and drop it into that system. So that allows a beneficiary who's moving from job A to job B to upload their I-129. We can keep their beneficiary piece. When the employer says, well, here's our previous visa, we're new to you, we can keep their things. We can then keep that over and over again, use it as we want, and that allows us to eliminate the number of paralegals, case managers involved in the case, and have the attorneys work so much less. We then discovered, in the way that it was being done before, that a questionnaire would go out to clients. I've used all of this software, by the way. Questionnaires would go out to clients, and they would have a gazillion different questions. And we discovered that everybody hated answering the gazillion questions. And so what we thought is, you know what else? There's no distinction between an unimportant question and an important question. An unimportant question is, what's your middle name? There's no discussion necessary for that. I don't need to ask Simon what your middle name is. Would you like to have this middle name instead of that middle name? It's an unimportant question. It needs to go in there. But what an important question is, what are the job duties for your H-1B visa? And what's the educational requirement? So we carved out the important questions and we put it into strategy, and we collaborate with our clients in this platform on that strategy. And when we take that strategy, it dumps into our documents. Our brief is about 15 to 25 pages long with leading case law, but I can build it in 3 seconds, right? That's the difference. We can also build about 100 different documents, anywhere from a sophisticated business plan that complies with the matter of hoe case to an employment letter that supports this other thing, expert letters. We do a lot of experts in extraordinary ability visas, but we ask the experts what their opinions are, and then we drop them into these letters, and then they can then look at it, review it quickly, and not be stuck waiting for these guys for 2 months because they don't know what to do first. Or what we think, which is almost malpractice, is that some attorneys will just ask their extraordinary ability clients, go get me expert letters. The client doesn't know what to put in the expert letters. The expert doesn't know what to put in the expert letters, and they get their cases denied. What we've done is created a system that walks you through this, that makes lawyers smarter. One of the things that we've really thought about is AI should not replace attorneys. There's no way you can, for a number of reasons. Number one, people want to have relationships with their attorneys. They want to call me at the middle of the night. They want to call me on the weekend. They want to call me because they're stressing out about their employer isn't going in, or the employee wants to stress out about where's my case at. We can't ever replace that. We should never replace it, right? But we should spend less time on it, and we should just be focusing on how do we get there. We should use the technology to arm us. I look at the analogy as a person that is a roofer with a hammer and a nail putting on shingles is going to do a slower job than a guy with a nail gun that goes bam, 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 bam. You still need the roofer, right? AI in the professional industries, especially law, has to augment the attorney. It can't replace the attorney. So that's what we've done, is to make us better and smarter instead of replacing us and not having anybody you can call. But if we can spend less time, we can charge clients a lot less money. And what we've done is we've dropped our prices for H-1Bs down to $499, right? We're a few $100s under the cheapest people. We're thousands of dollars under the going rate and a lot more under the premium price. But yet our brief and our system and the way our attorneys and team are involved in it, we will do a better case for them. And that's how you automate, and that's how you disrupt a profession. So Great. Thank you for that, if I got all that in quick enough.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, John. That's really helpful. I mean, you know, the key takeaway there is that AI helps people. It's not intended to automate entirely. It's just to automate those processes where it makes sense. Kamal, I'm going to turn to you now, and you have a really interesting product, your talent intelligence platform, and you really sort of target how to transform the whole HR environment. Can you share a little bit about how the intelligence platform works and where it comes from, and what's the AI element of it all?
Absolutely. John, I do love you. I love the lawyers. My daughter wants to be a lawyer. So yes, thank you for showing how to do it better.
Would love to talk to her if she'd like, Kamal.
Absolutely. Things that John touched on are actually the key on role of AI. Things are going to change. All of our jobs are going to change in the next couple of years. If anything, COVID actually accelerated that transformation. What we set out to do was build an AI platform so that we can provide the right career for everyone in the world. And clearly, eightfold, we have about 220 people. We'll have another 100 or so by in the next couple of quarters. But clearly, we are not going to be able to employ everyone. So the strategy was that, okay, let's then figure out how to help the largest employers in the world, because the jobs are there. We're just very inefficient in putting the right people in the right place. So today, actually, we're about 4-year-old company. Today, we have the only AI platform that solves for employees, for candidates, for contractors, and for citizens. So the acceptance has been very broad and very quick. We are already in 4 continents with users in 110 countries. So clearly the need is resonating. Now the double click on that is, how are we helping the process? And there are a couple of buckets to look at. Number one is everybody talks about candidate experience, and I'm sure Simon will actually doing a great job in India for Salesforce. It's like so much options, so much competition. How do you distinguish yourself? And when you have a big brand, how do you get the best talent to come to you? Because otherwise you can keep chasing everyone all over the place. It doesn't make any difference. Second one is COVID actually shifted the focus to employees. A lot of companies actually slowed down their hiring or stopped hiring. And then they said, okay, we need to take care of employees, not just about safety and sending them home, but how do we set them up for success? Because the issue is we talk about these 4 rules that people don't leave their current job to do the same thing in the next role, and yet our whole infrastructure is set up for that. Second element is resumes are useless and job descriptions are even worse. And yet we keep relying on these 500-600 old year instruments, and job descriptions are literally a laundry list. Third element is you can't hire your way out of poor retention. So take care of your employees, otherwise you'll never get to the other side. And the last part, which you had also flagged earlier, all of us mean well, but we are all bringing our biases into the hiring decision, who to hire and who to promote. And all of those things we want to solve with our AI platform. And the one thing I'll share, because actually you're on the public sector a lot, the work that we were actually doing on the public sector side, because in every country, right, the government is the largest employer. So wanted to make sure that we invest in the right place, right time. So last year we actually pivoted to and worked with McKinsey to build a talent exchange so that we could help the impacted companies and individuals. And learned a lot, did a lot there. That led us to actually win the Veterans Challenge run by Department of Labor and Department of Defense here to help the veterans transitioning into the civilian workforce make that transition easier, because they are very well trained, but their skills are very different than what you find written in the job descriptions on the civilian side. So now this summer that'll be rolled out for veterans and their spouses, and that's about 6 to 8% of the US workforce. Then the third thing was state of Indiana is now live. They have a platform called Hoosier Talent Network that's running on Eightfold. And that'll be used to actually, number one, reduce unemployment, and number two, accelerate their upskilling, reskilling efforts. And they have over 100,000 jobs available. And the other thing that we did last year was got into a partnership with NASWA that has over 2 million jobs in US, so that we create a well-calibrated job library so that we make it easier for people looking for a job to find the best fit. So all of these, as you rightly pointed out, we have a world-class matching engine. And the intent here is not only to get people into the right roles and solve not just for the linear direction, which is obvious, right? A marketing person stays in the marketing group, but also what are they aspiring to do so that they stay with you longer and longer. Whatever they want in their careers is available to them, especially in large organizations. And as we were hearing from Procter & Gamble and Morgan Stanley, these are large organizations. There's no dearth of opportunity. It's just that we fail to provide them to every individual. So I'll share more, but that's essentially what we have built. And the main thing with AI is we have a global data set that has trained the models. So that allows us to actually be very, very accurate on what somebody is capable of doing. So we've learned from global data set, and that allows us to be very, very prescriptive for an individual inside an organization. Does that help?
That's very helpful. I mean, you said 2 or 3 things that really resonated with me. One, the old way of doing it, resumes and job descriptions are just irrelevant in the current setting. That was really interesting. And then the other, the global nature of it all. I thought that was really interesting, how human resources is now viewed as global talent pool. Simon, I'm going to turn to you, and it's an easy, I'd love to hear about your thoughts about how all of these issues percolate within your company individually, but also if you could share a little bit as you think about as a major global platform as well, that not only you have your internal needs, but you're also a platform that has, a whole variety of partners and third-party softwares on that, and how this is all impacting those 2 pieces of your activities.
Thanks, Jay. And I would actually like to throw a question out to all of them and before we get into that. It's more of not a question, but more a thought. I'm sure most of us, all of them, I mean, at least the people who introduced were from HR. I'm sure all of them know this candidate called X. Yes, no, some reactions on the chat box. Let me tell you who this candidate X is. This candidate X is that candidate who applies onto every job that you have advertised multiple times in the same role, does not hear back, escalates all the way up to the CEO, and if given an opportunity, escalates again, saying that the person was not given the right opportunity, and in 24 hours again applies onto the next 150 jobs that get posted. And John, that's where recruiting works very closely with legal. Right now, with this as the background, this is where artificial intelligence comes to the picture. Right, it tells us how many resumes we have in a particular requisition, or a particular candidate has applied onto how many requisitions. Right, typically you would see a candidate applying on against one or two of these requisitions. People shortlist their jobs very carefully. Right, it's more towards an interest that they have, and like Kamal rightly mentioned, right, most of them look at going on to the next step in their career, going on to growing or learning more. Right, and that's where AI comes into the picture to us. Right, it gives us the guidance saying that you have X number of resumes sitting in this particular requisition, right, and it's aging, and here's the split of candidates, and it also helps us focus on diversity and inclusion in this space. Right. And also, one of the things which I like that John really mentioned is AI cannot replace the human touch. Right? A lot of people keep worrying, saying technology is going to replace human beings. That's not true. Technology, if not anything, is only going to open up opportunities for all of us. Right? I'm doing recruiting today with technology. I might not be doing hardcore recruiting, but I might be doing something else. I need to learn. I need to move along with the times, right? So technology definitely teaches us a lot. And artificial intelligence, AI by itself, does not do anything. It is our actions which AI tracks and gives us guidance saying that this is what's going to happen. And let's say, for example, 10 times a day I keep hitting 2 + 2 = 4. The machine picks up that from my action and later tells me, right? It does not answer it for me, but it gives me options saying this is what it is. Now, if I bring this back into Salesforce and what we are doing, internally, we have our own Trailhead platform, and we have a lot of examples that we can talk about how people highlight what are their career aspirations, what are things that they would like to learn, and do the right modules on Trailhead. And we have live examples of where somebody from a customer success group, right, which is more in terms of support, has acquired the right skills using Trailhead as a platform and moved into hardcore development. Right, so there's a lot of matching that goes on in the background, and employees get matched with their career interests. Right, at the end of the day, retention is all about providing the opportunity for an employee to grow, to scale up, to do different things. So this is what Salesforce as a platform is doing. We're also partnering with a lot of our external vendors, some of them very closely, who help us in our day-to-day activities with recruiting. And that's where our whole platform comes together. The integration comes together to try and see how can we do more with less. And technology helps us to a very large extent over there. And like Kamal rightly highlighted, COVID has done nothing but accelerated this whole path of adopting to technology. Right? I'm sure most of you are aware of Salesforce's program now of work from anywhere. With COVID and with the kind of challenges that we had, right now we have the option of working from anywhere. We can work remote. We can go into office a few times in a week, or we can get into office full time as well. So all of these challenges that was posed has transformed positively for us, and we have captured all of. We've utilized these challenges that has been thrown our way and utilized them to ensure that we have the right technology in place and use the technology in the right way so that we can progress towards the larger goal of the organization. Right? Another long answer, Ajay, but we can definitely talk more as we progress.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm going to encourage our participants now to either raise hands or post your questions as we go, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. Kamal, my first question is to you. You had mentioned a couple of really interesting things. You said that you're cataloging open jobs and sort of creating a consistent database. On the other hand, you're trying to match skill sets. We all sort of know, instinctively that COVID has changed a lot of aspects in our life. A lot of it won't go back to what it was. What has changed in terms of what companies are needing and what the skill sets people need? I mean, I can say in my own life, I used to meet people, and those interpersonal skills have been oscillated back to presentation skills. But all joking aside, what are the changing skill sets and dynamics that you're seeing overall?
Absolutely. There are a few very dominant trends. The main thing that's on the table is upskilling, reskilling, because the digital efforts have accelerated. And now the key is that's a big number, right? So upskilling, reskilling, it'll take time. But underneath the cover, everybody is looking for digital skills.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that too across different functions. So we're now hearing more and more. One aspect is, of course, what COVID has done is made us all realize that hybrid work is here to stay. People could really be sitting anywhere. So from a hiring function, that aperture is now very wide because you can hire pretty much anywhere. Doesn't matter. We're all used to it, right? And most of us didn't slow down. So that means if you couldn't handle a few 100,000 resumes a month, how will you hire and manage when the volume goes up 2, 3, 4 times, right? So with big brands, the problem is now bigger and nobody's hiring an army just to go through the resumes. That's number one. Second issue that's emerging very big time is how do we determine what somebody is capable of doing, right? If the digital skills are not growing up on the trees, how do we actually unlock that? And what I'm also hearing from a lot of large companies is they are actually being very specific that I want someone in customer service who has Disney-like experience. I want someone from Amazon who has turned everything upside down on how to actually turn speed into an asset, right? And continue to grow. How do I revisit what Uber did to transportation, that our kids now no longer are interested in whether they have a car or not because getting from point A to point B is no longer an issue. So these are big changes that is making any large company think that, okay, I can actually have all-star cast and I don't need to stay the course on being limited. Now, at the bottom end of that, early career hiring, right? Most companies go to the campuses. Now, of course, campuses, nobody was going there for the last couple of quarters, but what if you were not limited to 10, 20, 30 campuses, you could get the resume books from all the campuses. If you're going to hire 100 kids out of college, find the 100 out of the thousands and tens of thousands that are graduating and see what makes sense. And that ability to do everything at scale and become more diverse, that's the combo that we need to crack now. Because the other thing that is not going off the table, fortunately, is the absolute conviction that we have to become more diverse now. That issue is not staying off the right. It didn't go away because of the next news cycle. And that's the encouraging part, that how do we actually give the same opportunity to everyone at scale, first inside the company, then go outside if need be, but make it easy for everyone to actually, main thing is how do you inspire everyone to continue to learn all the time?
Yeah,
right? That's the key.
That is really interesting, particularly given the time constraints that so many people have in this sort of new structure. We have a question from Srinivas. Srinivas, if you want to come online, come off mute, introduce yourself. Yeah. I'm happy to do that. Nice to see you, sir.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello. So my question is related to the hiring process, recruitment process, its compliance to data privacy regulations, particularly if you see Article 22 of GDPR, which talks about right against automated decision making. It gives the opportunity for data subjects to get transparency about how you are doing to take a decisions, which is about not having algorithmic opacity, and at the same time raise objection to whether the decision was taken, and maybe there's a request for manual intervention. So there are safeguards required when, particularly when the harm going to be caused is irreversible and significant. Of course, that significant word is subject to interpretation. But I see here that potentially there could be candidates who could have been selected by the algorithm and got rejected, and vice versa, false positive, false negative, type 1, type 2 error. But either way, the question is those who are rejected, the numbers are significantly high. The purpose of doing this is operational efficiency, right? In addition to what Simon mentioned about people frivolously using thousands of resumes sending to thousands of portals. There's also a question of we want to reduce the burden on panel discussions and interviews, and therefore we want to, as much as possible, filter it. So there's one concept of data minimization which is coming on the way. The other is about automated decision making. So what is your experience? Did you go through this compliance to GDPR, and was it raised anywhere in the concern, provided you rolled it out in Europe?
We have, and yes, we did go through it. And checks and balances are absolutely table stakes now, right? You can't be solving anything and not actually be treating it as utmost important. So there are a few elements to that. First one is, of course, that if somebody is not interested in engaging with you, absolutely you should not be engaging with them in return or misusing their data for anything. So that's one side. So that's a given. Then the second thing that you mentioned is the key part. It's the transparency. So if you just take what we do with our career site, our AI-powered career site, when somebody applies, the system is recommending jobs that they are a great fit for, strong fit, good fit, but tell them why. We like you because of these reasons. And underneath that, in the past, when we have hired, other candidates came from these companies with these titles, with these skills. And the second part that we are doing is, because of our algorithms and global data set, we are able to go through their profile and see validated skills, missing skills, likely skills, and skills to be validated. Because that's the biggest issue in hiring, right? I mean, a resume or your LinkedIn profile is a self-attested document. You and I can make up whatever we want to put in those documents. How will the other person know? So we are able to actually flag all those and actually make it transparent that, hey, we like you for this thing. So if that information is incorrect, update, no worries. Then the second thing that happens is same thing is available inside as well. So now both sides are seeing the same thing, and same thing happens with employees, right? Large organizations, how do you know what people are doing in other parts of the country or other parts of the groups? Because we only know so many people, right? And after 10,000 employees, by the way, you lose track of who's doing what, where. So that at scale makes a big difference. Third piece is, so that we don't stay in the theoretical side, our customers are hiring 40 to 50% more women straight from the career side, which is the fastest and cheapest way to hire because people are coming to you, right? Your cost of hire and speed of hire is incredibly faster. And with they're hiring more women, we have customers like Postmates, etc., who have improved their pipeline of qualified candidates for Black Americans and Hispanics by 40 to 50%. And overall, across all of them, 80% improvement in the quality of pipeline, because people are applying to the right jobs, not just determine, right, where do I go? Hundreds of jobs, how do I determine what's the right fit? 60% improvement in diversity, and 20% more hires being made from the career site. By the way, career site is the easiest access for everyone, right? Because how do I know? I don't know anyone at Morgan Stanley, for example, or Procter & Gamble. I see the job. How do I make sure that I'm considered for it? So we are leveling that playing field with, and of course, we do a lot of work with our algorithms and audits. But the key part is the global data set. The thing that is missing is when you're trying to determine who's capable of doing what we don't understand is the relevance. Everybody talks about, I'm going to get rid of the bottom 5-10% in my company because operating model was impacted by COVID. Well, how do you know they are the bottom 5-10%? In all likelihood, they were good enough when you hired them. It's just that you don't know where to place them. Right? So those are the things that are very, very seminal to every individual. We need to put them in the right place, and then they will all flourish. Does that help?
So you're saying we could do that in Europe and you didn't have any issues coming up from the individuals?
No, we actually comply with all that. We have data centers there so that the data residency is also issued, right? So it's not just one thing, it is like 4 or 5 things. And also because we are doing a lot of work in public sector, we are even FedRAMP ready so that we are complying with the highest standards in data privacy, security, everything.
Great, thank you. I'm going to turn to Simon. There's a couple of questions in the boxes that there's been a lot of talk about bias, a desire for diversity in the work field, in the workforce, and there's also been some discussion about sort of behavioral economics and how do you connect the dots, right? How is this all changing, and how does AI come in? How do you ensure that AI doesn't have bias built into it by its creator, right? Software engineers. And how do we know that just because in the past, this job with this title, which was probably held by a certain type of individual, doesn't become the norm and therefore preclude other sorts of innovations or differences?
Thanks, Jay. So one of the things that we do regularly is we look at the data of candidates that have gone through the process, right? And that is where the system throws up information to us saying if there is any bias in the system. We look at how men and women fare through the interview process, right? And then we start that off right from the job description stage. When we read the job description, we see if there is any bias in the job description. If it is a male specific job description or a female specific job description. So we remove all the bias right from there. Okay. And then we have our own interview feedback tool, and constantly what we do is we analyze the results from this tool, right? We keep looking at analysis over there and see if there has been any bias in a particular role where we have both women and men progressing through the interview process. And for a particular role, is there a preference of either of this gender? And the minute we have any of these biases highlighted over there, we definitely double click and go and find out what's happening over there. Is this a personal bias, or is this generally this is a trend of one gender doing better than the other gender in the interview process. But this is where AI comes into the picture, where right from the beginning, which is the sourcing stage at the beginning of the funnel, right? We get a holistic view of the split of candidates. Now, diversity and inclusion is also a huge byproduct of the talent availability, right? Now, certain roles have a good mix of talent and certain roles do not. And wherever we have these good mix of talent, we look at the data, we compare our internal data to the market data and see if there is a trend. If there's a positive trend, good, we continue on the same aspect. And if we see the trend is downward, that's when we double click. And if required, we also run a lot of enablement sessions on how to not be biased during the interview process, right? So we have our own internal tool, and that is what we use to analyze this data and identify any bias that we have in the system and catch it in the early stages, right? And ensure that these biases are overcome by interventions that we bring in together.
Great, thank you. So what really struck me there is that there's still a manual process to evaluate the AI generated results, and go through and then correct it, kind of going forward, right?
AI generated results is more as a guideline that comes to you, right? It shows a trend. It gives us a trend saying, this is where we are heading.
Right.
Okay. Now it's like your GPS, right? You're moving from point A to point B. Your Google map tells you that if you're in the right direction or no. But if you decide to make a stop somewhere to grab lunch or go detour because you like this one restaurant which serves good meals, right? You still have your Google Maps on, which keeps telling you, saying you're not on track, but you're not on track, right? So AI is nothing but information that is provided to you, provided you give the right data. Without giving the accurate data or without giving the right data, you cannot expect AI to highlight or point out anything to you.
Thank you. I really do miss the opportunity to have Chole Bhatura just to stop over my next tour to India. John, did you have a question? I saw you raise your hand. I have a question for you if you want to.
I wanted to bring up a question. I'd love to hear what these guys say about it. But from our perspective, we don't think that human interaction or human opinion is a bad thing. It's just that some opinions are better than others, right? And so what we've developed is what we call winning strategies that help us win cases. And what we want to do is make those winning strategies easy for our users, especially the lawyers working with their clients, to make the best argument. So we want to influence through the artificial intelligence, right? We want that. But what I heard about artificial intelligence when I first got involved was the term, not that you couldn't have human interaction, but garbage in, garbage out, right? So having good opinions that are influencing the users is a good thing, as opposed to having no opinions, right? And so how we look at how our application works and scales is, imagine having a little senior partner lawyer on your shoulder that could take a brand new attorney, say that Kamal's daughter graduates and she gets hired by our firm tomorrow, and she's never done anything. What if the senior partner didn't have to train her over and over and over again, but was always in her ear and saying, do this, don't do that, at every different decision, right? That's how you can use artificial intelligence to aid the provision of knowledge across your platform, across your network, and all of those sort of things. So I hope we're not going in the wrong direction. We're sort of figuring this stuff out as we go. But to not have any opinion would be bad from what we're trying to do with it.
Right. John, just a follow-up question for you. First, I'm going to ask the speakers if you could all go to the chat box and type in your contact information in case any of the participants want to reach out to you. As a follow-up, John, we've been talking about how people can start to work in places not necessarily tied in the same physicality in the past. Are you seeing these sorts of shift in the visa world? I mean, presumably if work is remote, then that's going to impact both the types of resources that you could potentially hire for a job, and might also impact some of the visa and immigration issues. What are you seeing in that realm that can be insightful?
If you see me squirm, it's like anything that immigration will use as a reason to deny a visa, it will. It's the Murphy's Law of agencies, right? So I'm waiting to see if arguments come out as, what location is this person at? Are they really part of the company? Are they not? Some new, battleground that we'll face in 2021 that we haven't seen before, because that's really what they've done for a number of years, is come up with their new novel way to deny a